Hello everybody, my name is Kara, and today I'm here with the Shaded Choice Awards book tag. So as usual, the Goodreads Choice Awards this year were not terribly diverse. There were a lot of really incredible debuts and books that came out this year that were by authors of color that just did not get the attention that a lot of people felt they deserved. So to combat that, three wonderful creators actually put together a separate awards category, or awards show, I guess, awards project, I don't know what word I'm looking for, and that is the Shaded Choice Awards. So that is created by Princess from Castle Library, Jasmine at Pardon My Imagination, and Ashley at Ashley J Reads, and this is to celebrate people of color authors and the wonderful books that they write, and the books that didn't get enough attention this year in other various awards categories, but especially the Goodreads Choice Awards. I'm going to link the awards page as well as all of the creators down below. I think at the time this is going up, you can still vote in the finals round, so please be sure to do that. I'm also going to link my lovely friend Hannah from Lynn Hermione down below, because I actually first heard about this awards show or category from her wonderful blog post, so I will link that down below as well. So the first question is a new or new to you BIPOC author that you read this year, and for me I'm gonna say Junher, and this is one of the reasons I think this is such a cool awards project, because The Silence of Bones, which is a historical mystery I read earlier this year, I thought it was excellent, just such a wonderful book, and I hadn't really seen a lot of buzz about it. I'd seen a few booktubers talking about it, but I hadn't really seen it on any of the big awards lists or anything, and I think it was just a fantastic debut, and it was one of the nominations, so I got to vote for it, so that was very exciting. But yeah, I just really loved this. I loved the way that Junher wrote. I thought the mystery elements were done really well. The historical setting was like just so well drawn. Junher has another historical mystery coming out next year that is The Forest of Stolen Girls, which I'm also really looking forward to, and yeah, I just think this was such an excellent book. The mystery element was definitely compelling, and I also really liked the way that other themes were kind of explored in this historical setting and in the context of this mystery, and was also really rooting for our main character, so definitely recommend that book. Number two is the debut book that you've read this year, and by the way, all of these answers of course should be BIPOC authors. For my debut that I'm going to highlight, I am going to say a book I just actually recently finished, and that was Alatsaway by Darcy Littlebadger, illustrations by Rovina Kai. I just loved this book. So this is a kind of, I guess it's like a supernatural mystery almost, but it's in an alternate United States where Native American creatures and beings are just a part of the world that everyone knows and accepts. And our main character, Ellie, or Alatsaway, her cousin gets murdered, and she has a dream about this, and she has abilities related to ghosts or spirits. So she gets this dream about who killed her cousin, and so Alatsaway and some of her friends and family spend the book trying to bring this person to justice. And I thought this was such an excellent book. I loved Alatsaway as a character. I really loved just the characters in general, the way they were drawn, and the relationships were so well developed. I loved her little ghost dog companion. That was really cute and sweet. I loved the setting and the folklore and the way that that was incorporated into this contemporary setting. And I also really loved the way that Darcy Littlebadger used the creepy elements to point to issues in our real world. That's something that I always just really enjoy. I find very impressive when writers do that, and I think that was done excellently here. So yes, highly recommend this debut. I think just it's so wonderful, and more people should read it. Number three is a 2020 release that you haven't read yet, and I could have picked several for this one, but the one I'm going with is A Song of Wraiths in Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown. I think I've put this on a couple TBRs now, and I have just heard wonderful things about it. I really want to get to it. This is a West African inspired fantasy. I think our two main characters, they each have reasons for needing to assassinate or kill the other person, but they end up developing a relationship, and I've heard that that's really well done. I've heard that the setting and the world building is wonderful. I've also heard this book deals with, I think anxiety and possibly also depression or PTSD. Yeah, I've just heard excellent things about this book, so I'm very much looking forward to getting to this one, hopefully soon. Number four is a favorite author who released a new book this year. This was probably not going to be a surprise to a lot of people, but I'm going to mention Anna Marie McLemore, who I absolutely adore. They write magical realism stories that are just absolutely wonderful. Anna Marie McLemore's books just like fill up my heart in a very particular way. Dark and Deepest Red came out very early this year, and I have actually read that one, so I will be talking about that more, hopefully in an upcoming wrap-up when I get around to editing that. And then Miss Meteor was co-written by Taylor K. Mejia, and I have not actually read this one yet. I am torn between wanting to read everything that McLemore writes right away and wanting to savor it, so don't know when that will happen, but their writing is absolutely gorgeous. Their books are always wonderful for diversity and representation. I love the way that they write characters and relationships, and I just love everything about their books, and I am so happy that we are getting another one next year, which is the Mirror season. I think something related to a mirror. Yes, I'm just so lucky to live in a world where Anna Marie McLemore writes books. Number 5 is what's your favorite genre, and what book would you vote to win in that category? So for me, my favorite genre is fantasy, of course, and I think my favorite fantasy of the year so far, that has to be Raybearer by Jordan Feiko. I just love this book. I know that this one is getting very high reviews overall, and I think it lived up to all of them. This is just such a complex and layered world. I loved Tarasai as a main character. I loved the world building of this book. I was so impressed at the way that Jordan Feiko constructed like different parts of the book that all kind of fed into each other, and every time we would start transitioning to the next like segment of the story or the plot, I was like, wait, but I'm still invested in this other part. And then every single time that happened, Jordan Feiko won me over with the new story. Like, it just kept getting better and better. This was such a gripping book. The relationships were so well done. I also think that the themes of this book, like the way that it handles empire and racism or discrimination in this fantasy setting, is just masterfully done. Yeah, definitely would vote for Raybearer to win. I just fell in love with this book, and it's truly one of the best books I've read this year. I think it deserves all of the attention it's getting. Number 6 is what is your favorite 2020 release by a BIPOC author? By the way, BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, and Person of Color. And because I don't want to repeat answers, there are several books I could have used for this one, but because I don't want to repeat answers, I'm going to say Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I have a whole video on reasons I loved this book. I will link that down below. But this is a Gothic horror novel that I think is just masterfully done. I love Noemi as a main character. I love the way that Silvia Moreno Garcia uses horror elements to make social commentary on things like racism and colorism and eugenics. I always love Moreno Garcia's writing. I think the setting and the creepy atmosphere were done really well. Yeah, this is just an excellent book. I've talked about it a lot, but definitely one of my favorite books of this year, hands down. Number 7 is who is a BIPOC author that deserves more recognition? And one that I want to highlight today is one I have mentioned before, but I still don't feel like she gets like a ton of attention, and that is Grace Lynn. I have read 3 books by her, which are sort of like loosely connected middle grade folklore stories, and those are Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, When the Sea Turned to Silver, and The Starry River of the Sky. I just love the things that she does with her stories. They're based in Chinese folklore, but she doesn't just retell stories. It's more like she draws inspiration from certain Chinese folktales that she grew up with. I think my favorite is still Starry River of the Sky. And I think for people who have any interest at all in folklore from other cultures or in middle grade fantasy, I think you should really check out her books. I always show off the beautiful illustrations in them, but I don't actually have the books with me right now, so I can't do that this time. But I have showed them off a lot before, and just the things that she says about the importance of storytelling in her books, and about things like compassion and determination. Like, I just think these are really, really lovely books. I think they would be great for middle grade audiences, but I'm an adult and I read them for the first time as an adult, and I still really, really loved them. They're very quietly beautiful stories, and there definitely are some emotional punches in them. Like, it's not all just sunshine and rainbows just because they are intended for younger readers, which I think is actually true of a lot of middle grade fiction. But yeah, I just think these are really excellent. I think that they deserve more attention, and Grace Lynn is my answer for that one. Number 8 is what's a Black, Indigenous, or Person of Color book you'd recommend that you don't directly identify with? So I really love this question, and my answers are going to be both full-length novels that S.K. Ali has written so far, and those are Saints and Misfits and Love from A to Z. I absolutely loved these. They are both wonderful contemporaries. They are own voices for the Muslim representation. And they both deal with various issues, but they also follow just like ordinary kind of teenage concerns and relationships and friendships. Saints and Misfits deals with sexual assault and sexual harassment, so definitely content warning for that. And Love from A to Z deals directly with Islamophobia and racism and grief and like several other issues. And I just think the way that S.K. Ali writes, she does it with so much compassion, and just the way that she makes characters that you fall in love with. I always say about Zainab from Love from A to Z is she's the kind of character where you read the book and you're like, I hope she would be my friend. Like, I hope I am a good enough person that Zainab would want to be my friend. I just think S.K. Ali is a phenomenally talented writer, and I am not Muslim, I am Catholic, but I really did identify with some of the like religious focused elements in these books. Obviously not because we are of the same faith, because we're not, but just reading about Donna in Saints and Misfits and Zainab in Love from A to Z, to read about characters where their religion is an important aspect of their lives, that was something that I really connected with. And this is not in any way to take away from the importance of Muslim readers getting to see themselves in books directly, but I do think it's really important that we can identify with characters who aren't exactly like us, you know? And that was the case with these, is in addition to all the other things I loved about these stories, that was an area that I was able to connect to despite not directly identifying with it. And the last question is to recommend some Black, Indigenous, and person of color content creators. And this part of the video is going to be essentially my next BookTuber Shoutouts video. I have done several of these before, and I'm just really excited to talk about all of these wonderful people. I've made sure to only pick people that I have not mentioned in a previous Shoutouts video, so I will link those down below if you want to see more booktubers to check out. But I thought that I shouldn't repeat people, since like this is going to officially be my next video in my recommendations series. Also, I'm realizing several of these people I have mentioned before and I have recommended before, but I have not officially talked about them in a BookTuber Shoutouts or Book Blogger Shoutouts recommendations video. So that's how I'm kind of approaching this. As I have always done when I recommend a booktuber, I'm also going to link a specific video of theirs. I just want you to kind of have an idea of what they do. So I'm going to start off with Samantha Cebios. Now, I found her relatively recently, and I actually mentioned her in my recent Indigeathon book tag because I've been really enjoying her videos, and her review of Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse is what convinced me that I really want to read that book. Because as I said in that video, I wasn't sure just because I didn't love Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse. I actually really preferred Race to the Sun, which is her middle grade book, so I thought maybe I just wasn't as into her adult stories, but I wasn't sure because I hadn't really heard a lot about the story specifically and what people enjoyed about it. But after watching Samantha's review, I really want to read it, like most of the rest of BookTube. And other things that I love about Samantha's channel is I feel like we have pretty similar tastes in fantasy, especially like some of the same tropes and everything like really work for us, like some of the same thematic elements in books she talks about that I also really enjoy. And she just has this very like down-to-earth presence, so I definitely highly recommend her. And the video I'm going to link is actually her review on Black Sun, because I just think it was so well done. Her reviews in general are really good, and I love that this one was able to convince me for a book that I wasn't sure I wanted to pick up. Next, I want to mention Hannah from Lynn Hermione, and I have talked about Hannah many times before, but I love her. Please check her out if you haven't already. So Hannah has a book blog, and she is actually my co-host and co-creator of our Underrated Books project. Our second installment should be happening soon-ish, as soon as I edit it. I'm sorry, Hannah, I'm taking so long. But she reads a wide variety of books. I really love the variety of genres and age ranges that she covers. And actually for this reason, I'm going to link her underrated books, like the first in that series that we did, because she has such a wide variety of books she reads, and I think that that post really exemplifies that. She definitely reads a mix of popular books and some that I've never heard of that I'm excited to check out. She also does great discussion posts, and something I really admire about Hannah is, especially you can tell this in her wrap-ups, she is so good at distilling all of her thoughts and feelings about a book into a few just very concise, very specific sentences. Like, she is just so thorough in relatively few words, and I just really admire that. She's also just like truly one of the sweetest and kindest people in the world. So yeah, definitely recommend her. Next, I have Yara from A Ray of Reading, and I was so excited that she agreed to be one of our co-hosts for the second round of Middle Grade Magic, so you might remember her from that. Yara also reads like quite similar genres to me, I feel like. She definitely reads fantasy and historical fiction, but she sprinkles in quite a few other things as well. She also reads a lot of contemporary. I think I actually found her channel from a compilation video of Muslim booktubers recommending Muslim authors, because I think she talked about Saints and Misfits, which is a book that I love, that I obviously just talked about, and one that I haven't seen as much attention for, so I was like really drawn to her channel from that, and I really love her content. Something that Yara does that I think is so impressive is she describes really popular books in kind of unusual or interesting ways. Like, the things that she pulls out of a story are not the same things that I have heard like just generally across the reviewer spectrum, which I think is just really cool. It's kind of like her videos can get me interested in really popular books when I didn't think I was, because the specific things she talks about are not things that I necessarily have heard. She's also just so eloquent when she is describing books and her feelings on books, and I just think she lays out her thoughts and feelings and likes and dislikes in such an easy to follow way, so definitely recommend her as well. And the video that I'm going to recommend for Yara is things that she loves in books. She did a whole video on that. We definitely have a lot of overlap on that list, so that's also exciting when you can follow somebody who has very similar tastes and tropes. Her personality is also just so fun and engaging, so definitely recommend her as well. Next I have Ashley from Bookishreal, and she actually works as a librarian, which I think brings a really cool like dimension to the way that she talks about books and recommends books and reviews them. I think that is so cool. She also reads a really wide variety. She reads everything from like middle grade and picture books to adult romance and everything kind of in between. I also really love how many books she talks about that are really not popular or really not known. There are books I've heard her recommend that I've never heard anybody else mention, which is always an exciting thing. As a lover of underhyped gems myself, it's cool to see other people kind of spreading the love for those. The video I'm going to recommend for Ashley is one I have mentioned before, but I just think it is so wonderful. Such a great resource, and that is a video that she put out on Juneteenth, which was celebrating Black authors who wrote picture books, middle grade, and young adult as well. She just had so many books in that video that I had not heard people talk about before. I have already found several new favorites from that video. Ashley just reads so much, and she puts so much thought and care into how she reviews and talks about each book, and I just love that about her. Next I have Kim from Native Ladybug Warrior, and she just has like the kindest and warmest like presence and vibe. Like just watching her videos is just always such a like peaceful experience. Like she's just, it's hard to describe, but she just has this very warm personality that just draws you in and kind of settles you down, and it makes you feel like you're hanging out with a friend. And she's also just so thoughtful with the way that she reviews books. Like her reviews are just truly excellent. Like the way that she really digs into themes and the way she connects the book with her own experiences and with wider Indigenous history is just so thoughtful. Like I don't listen to podcasts, but watching a book review from Kim makes me feel like I think how people feel about podcasts, if that makes sense, because they're just so interesting and engaging and informative, and I just really love and admire the way that she reviews books. The video I'm going to link for Kim is her Indigenous booktuber tag. That was an original tag created by Michelle from Thor Wants Another Letter, who I also recommend. She is also lovely, and Kim's rendition of that is I think just a very good expression of like how much fun she is to watch, while also just giving you some great recommendations and information. Next I have Fadwa from Word Wonders, and Fadwa's reviewing style is just such a great balance of enthusiasm and very direct about what they like and don't like. Like I just love the combination of like fan appreciation with also like breaking down exactly what works and doesn't work about a particular book. Fadwa also definitely reads a variety of kinds of books and genres. They're definitely very into romance, and they also read a lot of like YA fantasy, also some contemporaries and like some other genres in there as well. As far as age range goes, Fadwa has also been discovering an interest in middle grade recently, which has been really wonderful for me to see. That has been very exciting. It's just been really lovely to like follow along on their journey as they do that. And something I especially love about Fadwa's channel is the emphasis on underrated fantasy books or authors. Like there are definitely very popular ones that they focus on their channel, but also just ones that I don't hear as many people talk about. Like Mirage by Sumaya Daoud I think is an excellent book. I don't hear a ton of people talk about it, but Fadwa does, and that's really exciting. And as for the video I'm going to recommend for them, I'm going to link their Muslim shelf space feature, where they showed all of the books by Muslim authors that they own on their shelves, both read and unread. So it was kind of like a combination TBR and recommendations. Just a really great resource there, especially like I said, for maybe some more underhyped titles in addition to the really popular ones. Next I have Danny from Thunderbird Woman Reads, and she has done a really wonderful series of spotlighting Indigenous authors, like recommendation videos of some of her favorite books by Indigenous authors. That's a general focus of her reading and content. She also has this very like engaging and yet also casual and yet also like professional, kind of like put together vibe. I don't really know how to explain it. She's very passionate about what she does, and you can really tell. For the video for Danny that I'm going to recommend, I'm going to pick a review of a graphic novel she did that was by, I think it was a compilation by various Indigenous creators and writers and illustrators. She also talked a little bit about current events regarding the current anti-Indigenous racism in Nova Scotia, and she also talks a little bit about her Dreamcatcher business and why it's so important to buy from creators who are in the culture that they are actually representing. So just like a lot of great things in that video that I think really represents Danny's channel as a whole. And like I don't read a ton of graphic novels, and this is another case where this video convinced me to try a book that I might not have otherwise. So yeah, just really recommend Danny. Next I have Sajid from Books Are My Social Life, and they definitely focus their reading on Muslim authors and authors of color. And again, lots of like underhyped authors or books. They're also just one of the funniest people, and not in a way that feels like performing for the camera almost, which is not to disparage people who are more like performative when they're doing booktube, but I just feel like it's a real like part of Sajid's personality that's just shining through their videos. I also just really admire the way that Sajid engages so deeply with the books that they read, like whether it's a text for school or a YA fantasy, or an adult more like capital L literature kind of book. I feel like Sajid brings the same thoughtfulness to all of their reviews, which is just a really wonderful thing to see. They also focus a lot on Caribbean and Trinidadian authors in particular, so if that's something you're looking for, definitely check out Sajid. And for the video I'm going to share for their channel, I'm going to do the Once Upon an Eid review that they did, which is I think 4 or 5 reasons to read Once Upon an Eid, which is a collection I loved. And then the last booktuber I'm going to recommend today is Sasha from Baha Reads. She also recommends quite a few Caribbean books. Specifically, she talks a lot about Bahamian authors, and I just really love her energy and her smiles, and she just seems like such a happy and friendly person. Like there's definitely like a real feeling of like just positivity and just really happy energy from her videos. She also reads a lot of different kinds of books, quite a few underrated or underhyped titles. And she also talks quite a bit about the history of the Bahamas and how that interacts with the books that she's talking about, or just how that provides context for the books that she's talking about. And for her video, I'm going to recommend her July wrap-up, because I just feel like that gives you a great idea of the breadth of the kinds of books she reads and also just her fun personality. She's also done several videos that are specifically about Caribbean authors. But yeah, I just really appreciate the variety she reads and the way she talks about history and how that connects with books, or how it can give you a deeper understanding of books, and just her personality. She's just like a very fun, sweet person. So yeah, definitely recommend Sasha as well. Okay everybody, so that was the Shaded Choice Awards tag combined with my next installment of BookTuber Shoutouts. Please comment down below and let me know one of your favorite books you've read this year by a Black, Indigenous, or person of color author, and also shout out one of your favorite creators who is BIPOC. I'm going to tag a few people who I think might be interested in doing this tag, but I tag anybody who's interested in it really. Remember to vote, you still have time to vote in these awards, and I just think this is such a wonderful project. I'm so glad that the creators put this together. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!